Hey guys, I'm Eric and you're watching Notes and Nerds. So guys, welcome back to Notes and Nerds. It's a new season. We're kicking off our new season right now in 2019. So welcome aboard, guys. First off, I just want to touch up, we're doing a lot. This episode I'm doing first because the next episode we're going to start playing some games again. No, I'm not bringing back Retro Gaming Nerds, but I'm still the Retro Gaming Nerd, and I'm going to still play some games, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And it's all going to be in emulation. Not because I'm trying to prove a point, but it's really just easier for me as a video producer, a content creator, because one, I do not have a video capture device, and it's just really hard finding one that covers my needs specifically with retro gaming. Mostly because I don't have modded systems, so nothing captures RF very well or coaxial inputs. And if they do, it's usually really bad looking. So I'll be honest and upfront with you guys. We're going to do a lot of emulation, MAME especially, because there's a lot of stuff on MAME that you will never see on consoles, regardless of how hard you try, because it didn't come out on console. So with that in mind, this episode is going to be really special in the sense that we're going to talk about emulation on a variety of fronts, mostly ranging from the way you control the games, the best way for you to control those games, along with kind of deviating off that to a point where we're going to help you alleviate some misconceptions regarding emulation. So first off, options. Controlling your system. There's two methods. Either you purchase quality controllers, especially joysticks for arcade games. Those, you get what you pay for. The cheaper ones are going to be crap. I'm not going to sugarcoat it one bit, guys. The cheap ones are crap. You're not going to be pleased with them. You're going to wish you never spent any money on those things. And mostly because of travel time. You're going to push a button and it's going to be a delayed reaction. Nobody wants a delayed reaction. You don't notice it quite as much on home console systems. And in a lot of ways, you don't see it on the PC either. But when you're playing Twitch-style games, and I don't mean Twitch like Twitch, the website, Twitch games like maze games, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, old-school shooters and shoot-'em-ups, those are Twitch games where you have to react instantly, or you're not going to get very far in the game. You're going to look at spending upwards of $50 or more for a controller that's going to fit your needs without question. And that's just the way it is. And it's understandable. So there's nothing wrong with going that route. And there's a lot of game companies that make vintage controllers that will make your experience even better. Like 8-Bit Dough, I have their Genesis controller, the 6-button controller, that is for vintage hardware. It's not USB, but they do make a USB version, and it is a good controller. It's worth your time. It'll make your PC emulation feel like it's spot on legit. I don't have that controller. Like I said, I have the original Genesis version, and I wanted options. My options are adapters. This is actually a pretty cool idea, where you might already own some great vintage hardware, some great vintage controllers, some great vintage arcade-style arcade sticks. So why do you want to go buy more? Especially if it's perfect. So here's some options. Option number one is this PS1, PS2 to USB. This was really popular for the PS3 console simply because people wanted to use their vintage controllers instead of using Bluetooth. Some people complained of delays from, putting a button and reacting on the screen. Not so much of a problem these days, but back in the first days of Bluetooth controllers, some people had complaints. Whether they were founded or not, I don't know. So go with that. Plus, if they were playing their vintage games, PS1 or PS2 games on their PS3, yes, remember folks, you could do that with PS2, and you could still do that on the PS3 with PS1 games. In the last line of games, I have a sliding top slim model, and it still does PS1. Not Tekken 3, though. What's up with that, Sony? What is up with that? Anyway, great option. And there are some great joysticks on the PlayStation and PlayStation 2. I have a Pelican-based controller. It's okay. It's got a lot of travel time, mostly because the joystick also doubled as not only digital, but also analog with the push of a button. Bad idea. Terrible idea. But oh well. There's just so many options for the PlayStation 2. And there's a lot of other controllers. Like there's one I have that is called the Ultra Racer. Google it. You'll like it. It's interesting. It has a analog control knob that I'm curious how well it'll work, if at all, because not all peripherals work, believe it or not. It sucks. So there's that. The next one is a little more versatile for my needs, and this is a USB DB9 or Genesis adapter. Now, the cool thing about this is that the Sega Genesis and the Sega Master System uses the same exact controller adapter port. So did the Atari 2600 and 7800. So if you have vintage Atari 2600 or 7800 controllers, such as the classic joystick or the Pro Line joystick, boom. However, do not expect to be using the paddle controllers, which I haven't tested yet, but I'm pretty sure I don't need to bother. Mostly because the wiring on the Genesis inputs is different and rules out the ability to use the paddle controller functionality anyway. So, also, for example, the keypad for Star Raiders on the Atari 2600, which you can catch that episode we did for Retro Gaming Nerds a couple years back, right here on our channel. I'll try to pin that up here somewhere for you to check out. But this is a great option. The Sega Genesis had some great joysticks. So did the Super Nintendo, but I don't have one of those adapters, and I really don't feel a need for it, mostly because of the Xbox 360 and Xbox One controller options. And I'll get into that in a minute. So, with this, I have a special joystick that really saves me some money. And it allows me to use the controller on my vintage hardware as well, since I have Super Street Fighter 2 on my Sega Genesis. Let me introduce you to not an overly expensive joystick that you can easily find on eBay for under $50. Under $50. That is the Capcom Fighter Power Stick GS. It's a lot to say, I know. Really it is. This is an awesome joystick that came out by Capcom when Street Fighter hit. I believe it was Super Street Fighter 2. 3 levels of turbo right here. A button to turn it off. You have to hold the button down, then hit the level you want it at. Turn it off, you hold the button and press the off button. Mode button and start, or select and start, depending on how you want to use this in emulation with that adapter I showed you. Joystick. Oh, hear that? Micro switches. Micro switches. This is as arcade as you're going to get for a Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo, because they made the Super Nintendo exactly the same, so no different except the cord. This thing is great. Not only for 8-way control, but with the flip of a switch, it's 4-way now, which is great for arcade classics like Pac-Man and a lot of your Twitch games that only went one of 4 directions, especially side-to-side only. Trust me when I say it changed my game significantly when I went from using an Xbox 360 controller to this, playing games like Miss Pac-Man, Pac-Man, Galaga or Galaxian, and a few others. It's a great joystick, hands down. You gotta get one. Like I said, under $50, and you can use it on your original hardware without any issue. So there's that. Because I know a lot of you are thinking, well, why don't I just go ahead and spend the money if I'm going to be spending around $50 anyway on the other one? If you want to go back to your original hardware, you're not going to be able to do that with the PC USB version. So, like I said, it's a preference thing here, so keep that in mind. So, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, still, hey, I'm fine with the Xbox 360 controller, Xbox One controller, whatever. You know what? And there's nothing wrong with that, because I'll tell you right now, with the Xbox 360 controller that I have right here, this controller is honestly perfect for Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2. It's great for NES. It's great for a lot of different consoles. And I say go for it. Seriously, just go for it. There's all the buttons in the right place. Granted, with PlayStation, the joysticks are just a little out of whack here. But of course, like if you get the $3, only $3 adapter for PS1, PS2, you can fix that again. But these are immediately compatible. There's no having to worry about drivers and stuff like that, which I haven't really experienced a driver issue myself, so no big deal. I mean, you create a lot of arguments and counter arguments, go back and forth with this, but there's nothing wrong with this controller, especially since with the Xbox button on the 360 and Xbox One controller hooking up and allowing for special functionality on the PC with Windows 10, it really creates a solid argument why you wouldn't want to, why you would be crazy not to, I should say, crazy not to want to use this. Especially with live streaming, if you wanted to do live streaming. There's nothing wrong with this controller. It is, and this is the Afterglow. This is a third-party controller, the Afterglow. I love this controller. This is actually my go-to when I'm on the computer. The reason why I don't use it on the Xbox 360 is simply because I've got a 360 controller, and the 360 controllers were solid controllers to start with. So, great controller. And you can get a 360 wired controller relatively cheap from Microsoft. I mean, the Microsoft branded one, not a third-party one, but the branded one, easily. And those Afterglows are about $20 or so. And like I said, they're solid and they work perfectly. So it boils down preference. I like using vintage controllers with the hardware. You could go with 8-bit DOS controllers to get around the issue of adapters and just use a straight USB. But then again, like I said, you run into the issue of being able to play back and forth, especially if you have a great joystick like this that I have. Now, when it comes to the adapters, if you're thinking, okay, well, I want to go adapter because I got all these great vintage consoles, why do I want more controllers? I'll just use what I got. They're cheap. Not cheap in the sense of like they're going to fall apart if you breathe on them wrong. Cheap in the sense of, hey, that doesn't cost a lot. And you can get ones that have multiple in one. Like I don't have it yet, and I plan to get one, a Saturn N64 and PlayStation all in one. Mostly because I have a working N64 joystick that would be, or controller that would be great for my N64 emulation. Because honestly, that controller is so weird and so messed up, there is no compromise. There is no, well, this will work good. No, it just doesn't. But this, no, it won't. Saturn, you can get away with a 360 controller, sort of, but not really, because it used the 6 face buttons and then the shoulder buttons. And there's a lot of games on the Saturn that require that. Granted, Saturn emulation is a little bit difficult sometimes, but it's worth it when you get it to work. So it just boils down to preference, guys. And you can get all these adapters on Amazon. And the best way to search on Amazon for these is type in whatever it is, the console you're trying to, you want a controller for, to USB. So N64 to USB. PlayStation to USB. Genesis to USB. Or Mega Drive to USB. Mega Drive / Genesis, if you put both of them in there, you're guaranteed to hit everything you want. So I want to touch on another subject real quick. You casual gamers that are sitting here thinking, what's the benefit of it? Oh, there's a lot. I've discussed this in a podcast a while back, that with vintage gaming, there is a hurdle, a massive hurdle you need to be prepared to jump on or jump over before you even start. That's the investment hurdle. There are certain consoles that are expensive. I have a TurboGrafx 16 up here, just the TG16. Depending on where you're going at, that can go for close to $100 or more. I have Rayman for the Atari Jaguar, which I also have up there. That fluctuates around anywhere from $90 to $110, depending on season, I've noticed. $100 basically for Rayman. Excellent platformer. Holy crap, is it awesome. And expensive. Splatterhouse on the TurboGrafx 16 is about $60, $50, $60 in box. About $10, $15 cheaper without. I have a copy of each. So you get my point. A lot of the games that we all love and remember tend to be on that expensive side because everybody loves and remembers that game. Even if it was a really common game. Look at Super Metroid, guys. Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo still goes for around $60. $60. I have seen places where it goes for as much as $100 depending on demand and supply. And it's not a rare game. It is not a rare title. It's just popular. There is a lot of demand for this game. And of course, it's an excellent title. So, yes, high prices are demanded. So, you don't want to make that investment, but you still want to play these classic games because, you know, you're a casual gamer. You don't want to make this monetary investment. Well, it's not hard to get into with emulation. Granted, there is a problem of finding good games or ROMs these days, but you can do it. And I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to tell you in vague methods of how to do it. You just got to figure it out. Emulators are really easy to find. You just Google for Nintendo emulator, PlayStation emulator, RetroArch or Arch, RetroArch, RetroArch is an all-in-one emulator that a lot of people use. It looks a little intimidating at first, but I'll tell you right now, it is worth using. It's simple after you get used to it, and you'll thank me later. I use different emulators for different consoles personally, just because that's how I started. RetroArch didn't come out until later in my emulation career, if you will. So it's just one of those things. And I'm sorry if I keep adjusting my chair, folks. My chair sucks. So it's easy to get into emulation. And and I'm sure you might know a friend that knows a friend that will definitely get you the hookups. That's all right too. Of course, there is the gray legal areas that you have to be careful with, because if you don't own the games and the hardware physically, playing the ROMs is considered illegal. But it's really not enforced. Just because it's crazy hard, difficult to enforce it. Piracy is not good. It can be damaging, but also at the same time, there's a lot of arguments that can go back and forth on both sides, and we're not going to go into that. So it's a matter of whether you want to get into it and the value that you find in emulation. I have nothing against it, because it boils down, there's two sides of the argument. The argument of it's not right versus I just want to play the games. I just want to play the games is my side of the fence. I'm willing to spend the money on these games that I collect, but I still don't, if I don't have it, I want to play it. Especially if I'm thinking about buying it and, oh, hey, yeah, this game sucks. I ain't buying this crap. So that saves me a bunch of money, because that's the thing. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's good. But on the other side, people with the it's not right, not just because it's illegal, but also because of the fact that part of the aspect of retro gaming is with the original hardware. All the little quirks and the kinks here and there, like the Nintendo, where, you know, you had to finagle it once in a while because the original Nintendo, you put the disc, the cartridge in, pushed it down, closed the lid, hit the power, and prayed to whatever god you prayed to that it worked. Yeah, that was a design flaw from hell. Nobody liked it. So anyway, personally, emulation is not 100%. Just because there's certain, like I said, there's certain kinks and stuff with the original hardware that you can't replicate in software. But it's around 99%. You're going to get a spot-on experience. So it's up to you guys. And if somebody says, well, you shouldn't emulate like on a computer, you should go get one of those flashbacks or classic consoles. That's legit. This is the Super Nintendo Classic, the SNES Classic, or SNES Mini. I don't have the NES version. My brother does. It's the same exact thing, honestly. On the inside, it's the same hardware. I have an Atari Flashback 1, 2, and 8. Here's the thing, guys. Emulation. Legal emulation, mind you. But it's emulation. So anybody who says, well, this is the legit way to do it, they mean legit in the legal way. Which it still defeats the argument of it's the experience of using original hardware. No, it's not. And these are all the rage these days. Because you get a bunch of games on these. You get the same feel because the controller is almost identical. Even on the flashbacks from At Games or AT Games or whatever you want to call it. I always call it At Games. I like them. I enjoy them for what they are, but it's still not playing it on, say, the Atari Jaguar example, which they don't have a classic version of these guys. I wish they did. Oh, I wish they did. Well, here, I'll pull this one down since there is... The At Games version sucks, mind you, but this is the original. This is a classic. A real classic. Yeah. Right here, just for a little quick nostalgia trip, guys. If you need help in the game, call this number. I don't know if that number still works. It's Sega's helpline. So anyway... Yeah, I mean, I get it, yes. You're going to get a certain experience with the original hardware, but I'll be honest with you, I've played most of the games on this when I had the physical versions, and I've played on here, and there's no difference. Like I said, we're talking at around 99% accuracy, guys. It doesn't matter. It's all about what you want to do. Don't feel bad about it. Enjoy the games, because it's really hard to find these. But don't worry, we got some other options for you coming up too, beyond just those flashback and classic consoles. So, options galore. On many modern consoles, even from the PlayStation, well heck, even on the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, there were options. There are compilation games out there. You can get the Midway Classic compilations, Capcom compilations, Namco compilations, Taito compilations, Sega compilations. All these compilations bring together classic games onto a disc or a digital download or what have you. There's even 3 volumes of Atari 2600 VCS games and arcade games in a compilation from At Games. Well, At Games distributes it, and you can find it on the Xbox and PS4 stores, PlayStation Network and Xbox, whatever. These are great for those who don't want to spend the money on these little flashbacks or classic consoles or whatever. It's great for people who already own a good system, want to play the original stuff, and get a little more bang for their buck. You think about it, you spend $60 on the Sega Classics collection that's out on the Xbox One and PS4, you're getting a lot of games. I don't remember the exact number, but holy crap, it's a lot of games. I have the Sega collection, on the Sonic Sega collection or whatever, on the Xbox 360, and it comes with around 50 games. That's a lot of games for whatever, I paid for. And it's cheaper than going out and buying the Genesis and buying the 50 or so Genesis titles. Granted, you're always going to run into the issue that there's probably going to be a few games in there you're not going to care about, but it comes with the territory. Then again, you might get surprised. Like all 3 Mortal Kombats on the PS2 or Xbox original Midway collections, I think Volume 3, 1, 2, and 3, Mortal Kombat right there, all in one. And you get that today real cheap. Yeah. There you go. That's a great way to jump into classic gaming without having to make the big investments as well. Granted, it's not as cool as having a whole slew of classic vintage consoles along your shelf to show off to your guests, but it's not necessarily all about that. It's about playing the game and remembering your childhood, or even experiencing the history of gaming for you younger folk. So that's what's really important. So what spawned this episode, you're wondering? What's the big deal? Everybody has an episode like this. Yes, they do. Some of them are better. Oh well. Some of them had pretty graphics and video in it. You just saw my ugly mug. The reason for this video was because coming soon, I already put a teaser out on the internet, on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, where we're bringing back our retro gaming videos where we're using emulation. I'm not going to lie, guys, we're going to be using emulation. Mostly because if you've ever tried to get a good video capture card that captured the video from classic consoles that aren't modded, my systems up here are not modded. Granted, if any of you have seen some of my personal Facebook posts, I had discovered I had a PlayStation that was modded in the sense of being able to do CDR and import games, but that's beside the point. I'm going to pull one down, for example. This is my TurboGrafx 16. TurboGrafx 16, right here is the RF port, the coax. Here is an adapter, which I did find a Hyperkin based adapter that can fit right in there for composite video. I do plan on getting that. But other than that, I'll go around the sides here so you can see for yourself this console is not modified. I'm one of those, this is where I become a purist in a way. I don't want to alter the experience of the system. I got a TV that's perfect for these consoles. That's an old CRT style TV. So going in and altering the hardware in some cases is recommended, like the TurboGrafx 16 and some other systems. But at the same time, I just feel that it violates the system. However, I have been discovering it does add value to the console when it's updated for modern television. So I'm still on the fence. I am learning soldering and I'm planning on it. So anyway, as I was saying, emulation is how we're going to be doing some all of our videos for games, simply because it's just more feasible. And we're not going to be live streaming them necessarily. Some might not be. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of great videos are planned. And we're going to hopefully kind of instill a little history into the experience with you, talking about the games, especially games that are not released. For example, we're going to be playing Golden Axe, Revenge of Death Adder from Sega. Never released on home consoles. But Eric, Golden Axe 2 was released on the Sega Genesis. That, yes, was, but not the actual arcade game. The Golden Axe 2 and 3 that was released on the Sega Genesis have nothing in common with the arcade version. And I'm going to show you that game soon. So the stick that I will be using will be the Capcom Fighter stick here, because like I said, it has amazing functionality, very arcade-like, And I just love that stick so much. So guys, with that, let's bring this episode to a close. If you want to help support Notes and Nerds, you got 2 ways of doing it. 2. 1, you could go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/notesandnerds, where it's just $1 a month. $1 to be a patron. That's it. And for every month you are a member, you are automatically entered into our monthly drawing giveaway, where one lucky winner is going to get a cool prize. We have all kinds of cool stuff. We have them over an image of a lot of the stuff over at our Facebook page at facebook.com/notesandnerds, where you're going to love some of the stuff we're giving away. And it's worth it. So just $1, guys. $1. If you don't want to do our Patreon, well, you can do something cool too. That's buying some of our cool merch. Go to notesandnerds.com and click on our merch button, and you'll be taken to our Teespring website shop, where you can get a t-shirt kind of like this one right here, guys. Notes and Nerds, for really good prices. So not only are you giving us money, but you're also getting a really cool piece of clothing. We have t-shirts, sweaters, sweatshirts, hoodies. We've got for men, women, and children of all sizes, and a variety of colors. Some colors work better than others, but we have whatever color you want for the most part. And we also have a few other things that aren't clothing, like stickers and tote bags and other stuff. So check it out. You might like something. You can buy it, and it'll be to you within a matter of a couple weeks, depending on where it's shipped from. For example, this shirt was the cheaper one that I decided to go with. Cost me a total of $15. It's a Hanes t-shirt, and it's really heavy. Really good quality material. So you're not getting some cheap knock off the shelf Walmart special type shirt. You're getting some good stuff, guys. So you do that. And don't forget, please like, subscribe, and click that notification button for our next video. I'm Eric. This is Notes and Nerds. I thank you. Peace out, guys.